Hey guys, Richard here. Welcome to the Dealing with Chargebacks video. Although you might have done your best to provide a solid product and customer support experience, it is inevitable that you're going to have to deal with chargebacks. If you haven't heard of chargebacks before, it's pretty simple. A chargeback is essentially a dispute of a transaction with your company by one of your customers. If they've placed an order using a credit card, they can reach out to the credit card company or bank and file a claim against you, stating that there was something wrong with their transaction and get their money back from the bank. Chargebacks can be filed for any number of reasons, ranging from product not received, product not as described, to more general reasons like fraud or charge not recognized. While you should always own up to any mistakes you make on your end, sometimes customers will file chargebacks for invalid reasons, thinking that they can keep both your product and get their money back. And the worst part, the moment a chargeback is filed, your payment processor reverses the charges and bills you an extra $10 to $20 for the chargeback. This money is returned to the customer, no questions asked. Now, in order to get that money back, you have to file a response to the customer's bank, which can be a pretty frustrating experience. Unless you take the time to file a proper response to your chargebacks, the customer's bank will tend to side with them, allowing them to keep the money. Luckily, having experienced our fair share of chargebacks over the years, we've experimented with different responses and evidence to increase the likelihood of winning chargebacks. In this video, I'll provide you with a few useful tips when it comes to dealing with chargebacks. These will come in handy regardless of the reason for the chargeback and should help you win more of them. In addition, I'll also briefly talk about a service that we've been using to help prevent up to 20% of chargebacks before they happen. It's perfect if you're doing high volume and you want to keep your chargeback rate below 1% to avoid any sort of limitations or account shutdowns. By the time we're done here, you should be equipped with everything you need to effectively deal with chargebacks and minimize their financial losses. Let's get to it. Tip number 1, explain the situation clearly. Whether you're dealing with a customer that filed a chargeback just a few days after placing their order, or someone that didn't get their way with a return or refund request, your general approach should be the same. You need to explain the situation as clearly yet concisely as possible. If someone hasn't received your package yet, explain that it's currently in transit. If someone made a mistake when placing their order and are blaming you, make this clear in the response form. Remember, the testimony you provide is going to be reviewed by an actual human being, dealing with potentially hundreds of these every single day. The easier it is for them to figure out what's going on, the more likely it is that you'll actually win the chargeback. Tip number 2, provide relevant evidence. Depending on whether you're using Stripe, Shopify Payments, or some third-party payment processor, they'll likely include basic evidence alongside your own report and testimony. This might include things like the customer's IP address, information about the transaction, and maybe even a summary of the order. Be sure to know what information your processor is going to hand over, and if there's anything that might be missing that could be evidence to the transaction, include that manually. Depending on the situation, you may need to include a copy of a customer support ticket or export the Shopify order details the customer provided you with. Sometimes you might even want to provide a copy of one of your policy pages if relevant. When providing these types of evidence, think about what type of format is going to be the easiest for someone to review. Copy and pasting a bunch of text into a text field isn't usually a good idea. Including a PDF or Word document of the relevant materials can often be a much better way to go. Tip number 3, be professional. Even if you think your customer should be on America's Most Wanted, you'll want to avoid sounding critical or insulting in your responses. No one wants to sit there and read through a drama testimony that takes up pages. Just provide them with the evidence and facts needed to support your position. That's really all that matters, and the only thing the bank will ultimately use to make their decision. Tip number 4, act quickly. Many payment processors will provide you with a specific date you need to provide evidence by. Typically, this will be something like 5 to 10 days, depending on the particular financial institution you're dealing with. If you miss that window for a response, the chargeback will be considered final, at which point the bank makes a default judgment against you and your money is no longer going to be recoverable. So I would recommend that you get your response and evidence together as fast as possible. It's pretty easy to forget about a pending chargeback, especially if you're juggling a ton of other aspects of your business with this. That's about it for the tips I have today. All in all, successful chargeback recovery is really just about being level-headed and professional, providing the evidence that checks off all the boxes the bank needs to help you win. Following the advice I gave you should get you as close to a chargeback victory as possible. In reality, though, the ideal solution to chargebacks is preventing them in the first place. One way to do this is by making sure that your customer support adequately handles problem customers correctly. Clear communication in regards to order status and your policies is essential. But despite your best efforts, customer support will likely only reduce some of the chargebacks from occurring. We used to do all of our chargebacks manually in the past, but for the last few months, we've been using a service called Chargeback 911, which is a turnkey chargeback management platform. Chargebacks 911 essentially offers two types of services. The first is a comprehensive chargeback service, in which Chargebacks 911 handles every single one of your chargebacks with their team of professionals. If you go with this option, Chargebacks 911 guarantees a 40% reversal rate, which is certainly impressive and saves you money. The second option you have is a self-service license, where you get access to their web platform. With this arrangement, you'll be handling your own chargeback cases, but you also get access to their chargeback prevention system, which can actually help notify you in advance. With both of these arrangements, you'll have access to their chargeback warning system, which can catch chargebacks before they're formally processed. In this case, if you so desire, you could refund the payment before the chargeback is filed in order to avoid increasing your chargeback rate and paying the chargeback fee. All in all, it's a handy system that can help you reduce chargebacks and recover lost revenue, particularly if you're running larger scale operations. If you're interested in checking them out, I'll include a link in the description of this lesson. Chargeback 911 only charges per chargeback handled on your behalf, so they'll always save you more money than what you end up paying them, which made this a no-brainer for us and a time savings for our team. Alright guys, that's about it when it comes to dealing with chargebacks. Although frustrating, chargebacks are an unavoidable part of the dropshipping game. But by following some of the advice I've outlined here, you could greatly improve your chances of winning customer disputes and retaining as much revenue as possible. And remember, if your chargebacks are rising because of a result of one of your business practices, make sure to do your best to address that issue to prevent them from occurring in the first place. And as always, if you have any additional questions about this lesson, please feel free to post it in the private Facebook group. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.